Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Alexia, and I am the program manager of the Microsoft Reactor Toronto. I will be sharing session resources with you in the chat, but before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items, our code of conduct and event guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. And secondly, our event guidelines. The session is being recorded and will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I will share the link in the chat for our on-demand content. And if you have not been on a live stream to YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube in order to have access and interact in the chat. You can set that up now. And if you're unable to use the chat but have questions, feel free to reach out to us through social media or on our website. Which brings us to today's session. I will bring in our speaker here for today, Brian. Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very great. We're so excited to finally have you here for this session. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an exciting one. So take it away.
Thanks. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining. My name is Brian Benz. I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft, and I work on the Java team there. But today we're going to focus more on AI. Some of the demos I'm going to show you are pertinent to the Java world, but the rest of it is all basically applicable to any programming language or platform you want to work with. So let's get started. I just have one slide I'm going to share with you. This slide is for an upcoming conference that we have at Microsoft called JDConf. You can go to jdconf.com to find out more information and to register. But basically, it's a 2-day conference. There is a live portion online. It's all virtual. And there is a recorded on-demand portion as well. So definitely check that out, jdconf.com. March 27th to 28th, there will be 3 different time zone deliveries. So we're going to have sessions delivered in 3 different time zones. So it's a truly global online event. And with that, we'll get into the demo. So that's the only slide I have for this particular session. I'm actually going to start with Kubernetes. We're going to go through some Kubernetes, and then we're going to get to the AI part, which is what most people are probably dialing in for. But basically, what you're looking at right now is the Azure portal, so portal.azure.com. If you go there, you can, if you don't have an account already, you're not familiar with this, you can sign up at portal.azure.com and get a free trial. But basically, this is how you manage all of your resources on the cloud for Azure. There's other ways to do it as well. I'm going to show you those as part of our AI demo in a little bit. But basically, what we've got here, this square here is a resource group. The resource group itself has a Kubernetes service, a container registry, and a bunch of stuff for monitoring. Inside the Kubernetes service, we've just got 3, actually we've got it set up to run 3 nodes of Cassandra, which is a popular database. And what we're going to do for the demo today is we're going to deploy Cassandra to this Kubernetes cluster. We can do that with or without the container registry. I've already actually gone out to Cassandra on Docker Hub. So if we go out to Docker Hub here, I've gone out, I've got Cassandra, and I've put it in my container registry. So if I go into my container registry here, I basically downloaded it from Docker Hub. And then if I go into my repositories, so Azure Container Registry is similar to Docker Hub, but basically you get information. It's a private registry, and you can share information from here. The nice thing about that, instead of going out to Docker Hub, is you have control over the versions, or maybe you have a customized deployment that you want to use. So you can put that in your own container registry. So those are the 2 components we have. We have Kubernetes. It's blank. It's empty. It's just sitting there, and a container registry. Now, the way I actually created this, and don't worry, we'll get to the AI part soon, but I'm just going to show you this before we get going with that. I created it by going create compute containers, and then I chose the Azure Kubernetes service, and I can pick a new Azure Kubernetes service, which is going to be, let's see, what should we call it today? Toronto 1 Kubernetes. Let's call it that. All right. So that creates a new resource group. So that's that square you saw in the portal. And that's how you actually manage things. For everything else, I'm just going to keep it with the default. So production standard and a couple other things. The Kubernetes cluster name, just to keep it simple, it's going to be the same. It's going to be in East US. I'm going to use zones 1, 2, and 3 for availability. That means that you can spread nodes across different areas in your data center or across data centers as well. You can choose the Kubernetes version, all that stuff. Okay, so next, node pools. I'm going with this. You can use standard CPUs, or you can use ARM processors for this as well if you want to save a little money and a little processing power. It actually is a great way to save and make your applications more green to use the ARM processors on Kubernetes. Okay, the other thing you can do, you can enable a private cluster. Because this is a demo, I'm not going to allow public access, and all this stuff in the real world will be set up afterwards. Calico, I'm leaving this all defaults. When we get to integrations, I am going to create a new container registry. I'll show you why I'm showing you all this in a minute. It's pertinent to the AI part of our demo. So I'm going to create a new registry called Toronto 1 Kubernetes. It's going to use Azure Policy, monitoring. I enable all the monitoring, which is the default. I have Container Insights, Prometheus, and Grafana that can be used for that. And then I can choose a couple of other things in advanced, which I won't. I can add some tags, or I can review and create this. And when you review and create it, basically what it's going to do is it's going to validate it, and then you create it. Now, it takes about 20 minutes to create it, so I'm not going to do that part. But I just wanted to show you what is required to actually set all that up. And the reason I want to show you that is something pretty cool, I think, anyway. Let's switch over to Visual Studio Code now. And let's just say that I want to make a repeated version of that. There it is. So this is my Visual Studio Code. And what I've got here, I've got all the steps I'm going to show you today. All the resource groups you set up, all this stuff. So all of these scripts here are generic scripts that I've created. So let's say I want to create a script using the Azure CLI, and I want to have the same thing I just showed you, but repeatable. I want to create a script that I could share with my resources inside my organization, wherever I am. And anytime somebody wants a Kubernetes cluster, you can say, okay, I've already pre-created a Kubernetes cluster that you can use, or a script for a Kubernetes cluster that we have blessed and you can use for your needs. And that could be for budget requirements or compliance requirements or anything like that. So basically from there, what I can do is use Copilot. So one of the cool things we have now is Copilot. For those of you who don't know, you can do things like just add a comment here, and it's not doing it. Let me see if I can find one. So sometimes when I do this, it actually adds the comment. It's not doing it right now, but that's not actually what I wanted to show you. So we have Copilot usually fills in some of the blanks here to help you with some of the things you want to do. It seems to be a little capricious today, but it's not adding it. This is one of the fun parts of doing AI in demos, by the way, is sometimes depending on the time of day or the moment you're doing it, you can get completely different results. So one of the questions that always comes up is AI going to replace, IT professionals, programmers, developers, et cetera, et cetera? My answer is not yet. That's for sure. You still have to be able to discern if the AI is providing you with a solution which actually is going to work, is secure, is reasonable for what you've asked it to do. And sometimes it can just be capricious, and you can get just completely bad answers, and it can just make stuff up. So don't worry, everyone's still got a job for now, but it really can help you. And that's what I'm going to show you today, is it can help you. So over here, I have my Copilot, and I can say, how do I create a CLI script for Kubernetes? And it's going to go ahead and it's going to answer. One of the cool things is it's going to tell me a little bit, and it's going to give me a script. Now, the thing is, obviously, this is a little hard to read and hard to follow over here on the corner. You can make it bigger. You can expand this over here, or you can do Control-Shift-I, and it actually brings it up here. And you can repeat the same question, and it's going to use it. Now, if you notice, it actually takes the context of what I'm working on at that moment. And that's one of the cool things about Copilot versus ChatGPT or something else that you're going to be using for this, which are totally valid solutions as well. But for this particular thing, you can actually have context-aware questions as well. So you can say, for example, I got this demo steps CLI. I can do Control-Shift-I, and I can say, oops, that didn't do it. Hold on. Control-Shift-I, thank you. What does this script do? And it says this provided script is not an executable script, but rather a set of comments and instructions for creating an Azure Kubernetes service that runs Cassandra. Yeah, so it went through and it looked at my script, and it tells you what it does. And it actually breaks down step by step what this script does. But let's say you don't have a script and you need to generate a script for this. I can say something like create an Azure CLI. Actually, let's do a clear first. And let's talk about the slash menu. So slash menu is pretty cool. For those of you who are old enough to remember slash menus in spreadsheets, this is something that used to be a thing a long time ago. And the slash menus are back. So the slash used to be in spreadsheets. You do a slash menu and you can program a function for your spreadsheet. Now they're here for Copilot, which is kind of cool. And one of the options you have here, of course, is clear. So I can clear my Copilot and start over. Now the context is still there. So it's still there. If I want to go back and look at my questions before, it'll repeat the same thing again. But that's nice. So the other things we have for the slash menu is search. We have explain, which instead of saying what does this script do, I could have just done a slash explain. Slash fix can be very powerful. It can also get into trouble quickly, depending on how AI is feeling at that moment during the day. New will create a new workspace. Tests is very useful, and it's program specific. So if you're working on Python, it's going to generate Python tests. Java is going to generate Java tests, et cetera, et cetera. It's very useful. Helps you with your prompts for CLI or for the Copilot as well. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, you've got this slash menu here, but the one thing I want to do to show you today, I just did the slash clear. I want to say, please, I'm always nice to the AI because we're all going to be working for it someday. So I always say please and thank you when you're working with your AI. That's my pro tip for today. So please create Azure, got to be specific, CLI script. Please create an Azure CLI script to create Kubernetes AKS instance. So AKS is the Azure Kubernetes service that we have with an attached container registry. And I want to be specific. Please, once again, use Toronto One Kubernetes as the resource group, AKS instance, and container registry names. How did that go? Yeah. All right. So it says, sure. So I'm creating a script. So basically, it's going to create an Azure CLI script in the resource group Toronto One Kubernetes. That's pretty cool. So what I can do now, there's a few different options I can do with this. I can copy it and paste it somewhere. I can insert it into the cursor. I can insert it into the terminal, which we don't want to do. I can also insert it into a new file. So there we go. So when I close this, I can see what it did. So AZ login, sure. Okay. When you're doing Azure CLI, you have to do AZ login. AZ group create name Toronto One Kubernetes. That works. Create. Okay. This is a really basic one, but it'll work. Let's do view word wrap. There we go. So zoom in on that. No, I won't. That's too big. Okay, AZAKS create. It's going to create a AKS service called Toronto One Kubernetes. Only node count 1. We can change it to 3. It's usually better. And then enable add-ons monitoring, generate SSH keys. And then you can actually create a container registry here. But what it's chosen to do is attach the container registry directly to the AKS. So this basically does everything I showed you in the portal earlier, but it only took a few seconds and it generates it, and it's likely to work first try. So that's pretty remarkable. Now, something else I can do. Let's say somebody says, yeah, you know, that's all great and stuff, but I don't like the Azure CLI. I want to do this Terraform. So you can say, please, first, thanks. Please create the same script, but in Terraform. Okay. So it took all of the context that we were working with in the chat and in the script and basically generates a Terraform file that we could use. Now, the Terraform file is a little more involved because it's not specialized for Azure, so it has to be a little more generic. But once again, I can create a new file of this, close this. So that's pretty cool. It went ahead and it created the Terraform for us. So now I can just save this. So I can save this one as a, and by the way, the Azure CLI. So create Toronto on Kubernetes. The Azure CLI has a specific AZ CLI file extension that not a lot of folks know about. But one of the nice things about it is it gives you all the color coding and everything in Visual Studio Code and other platforms as well. And it also validates. So if you have .az CLI here, it will actually validate this and give me things. So there we go. So there's I was trying to show you the example of Copilot, not Copilot chat, but just the old school Copilot. There it is. So it's starting to document things here. You see it had this little thing it just automatically added. And then I can do something like install Kubectl. It'll give you suggestions for your code. It tries to sort of think ahead and tell you what you want to do. Anyway, so I can save that. And then I can save this one as a Terraform. Save as. All right. And I'll just call that one GF. All right. So there you go. So you got a Terraform file now, and it recognizes as a Terraform file, and it looks like there's not a lot you need to do. Oh, but the one thing I don't like about this is it's not documented. So let's do Control-Shift-I. Please recreate the Terraform script with documented steps. And you have to be very, for steps, you have to be very specific. So there we go. So then it'll actually give you the nice steps that it's actually doing as it generates it. And this is very handy, in my opinion, anyway. Even if you worked on hand coding a really complicated Terraform script, maybe you have a Terraform specialist on site, and they don't necessarily always document stuff. But you can just come in here, copy their script in, and say, "Hey, open the script," and just say, "Hey, please document this," and it'll actually generate a new one that you can document. So, yeah, that's pretty cool, I think. Anyway. So it's in for, let's do that. Create a new file, close this. One of the other things you can do is just Control-I, and it'll say, please add more documentation here. All right. Oh, I see. Okay. So you have to provide the context. So there we go. Yeah. And we rerun it. Oh, I did provide it. There you go. Oh, okay. Using doc to generate a response. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I did. So now it's giving me a little bit of trouble because I highlighted this. So normally when you highlight it, it'll tell you, please add more documentation for this code. Can you provide me with the code that needs documentation? Yes, I can. I just highlighted it. Okay. So it doesn't like that. All right, let's do something else. Let's do Control-I again. First, I'll highlight the code. Control-I. Nope. Please add description for this code. And it should know what okay, there we go. So it did. There we go. That's how it's supposed to work. So it added a long description for this instead of that little one-liner. And you can say accept. So there you go. And then we can create from here, save as our Terraform again. And now it's nicely documented. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to do that for now. But you get the idea. So there's a lot of different things that'll save you a lot of time. Generate the script. In less than a few minutes here, I generated a whole script from scratch. I converted it to Terraform, and I had it documented. So that's something that wouldn't take just a few minutes in the regular pre-AI world. It's very, very useful. All right, so let's get into. So that's how you would actually generate a Kubernetes cluster without actually knowing much about Azure CLI or maybe Terraform. Or you can figure out what a Terraform script does if somebody gives it to you, or you can document it and send it back and share it with folks, and et cetera, et cetera. All right, so let's go into the demo that I mentioned at the beginning, which is basically taking Cassandra and placing it into and deploying it to Kubernetes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to my browser here into the Cassandra instance on Docker Hub. And I can say, and by the way, for those of you who are familiar with this sort of thing, I already have the YAML that I need over here, just in case the AI doesn't work today, but we're going to do it from scratch. So I'll close this for now. I won't save it. All right. So what we want to do is we actually want to just ask ChatGPT, Control-Shift-I, how would I deploy this to AKS? All right. So I gave it a link. Now it can't read the link, but it knows enough about the web to know that this is a Cassandra image and it's on Docker Hub because of the link. They can basically parse through the link and tell you that. So that's kind of cool. So it says to deploy the Cassandra Docker image to your AKS cluster, you first need to pull the Docker image. Let me go back. It's going too far ahead now. You first need to pull the image from Docker Hub, push it to your Azure Container Registry, and then create a Kubernetes deployment of that reference that references the image in the ACR. So let's do that. And here's the general outline of the steps you need to take. Put the Cassandra image from Docker Hub. I've already done that, actually. I've tagged it, and then I can push it to my Cassandra. So let's go into my script here. And basically, what I want to do, I've already done step 1. I pulled the latest Cassandra. I can do this. So I'm going to push this directly into my terminal. So let's do that. All right, Docker tag, Cassandra latest. There we are. And then we're going to push this to our ACR, but we're not using the Toronto 1 Kubernetes. What I've done is created another cluster. So let's push this into our terminal. And it's called Kubernetes with AI. I guess I could have asked it to use that one. Okay, so let's do that. So let's push that. Oh, wait. I've got one though. What did I do wrong here? Image does not exist locally with the tag, but I did. Hold on a second. Let's try that step again. What did I do wrong? Docker tag Cassandra latest. You know what? Let's go through all the steps. It'll take a couple of minutes extra, but that's okay. So let's go here. Say Docker pull Cassandra latest, and we'll make sure we've got. Okay, image is up to date. So we got that one. Then we can do this. Oh, that's what I did wrong. I didn't change this. Okay. Push. So there we go. So basically what it's going to do now is it's going to push into that container registry that was empty. Takes a second. Let's close this so we can watch what's happening. So basically what it's going to do is push it into the container registry that I've already created. And then we're going to have something ready that we can deploy to ACR. Now, there's a couple of actually different options we could do. From here, this is all the script that you already saw. I've already installed the AKS into the cluster I have. I've got the credentials for the Kubernetes cluster already, and I already created the ACR. And so what we just did now is create, pull the Cassandra, the Docker Cassandra tag, and we pushed it to the ACR image. So it's pushed there now. Let's go to our browser and let's look at Kubernetes. So if you look here, the container registry in the repositories, there it is. So we got our Cassandra. We've got Cassandra latest. Great. All right. So the next thing we want to do, just following along the steps they have there. Go back to Visual Studio Code, Control-Shift-I, takes you back to where you were. All right, so then we need to create a Kubernetes deployment. And you know what I'm going to do? I'll just manually change things. So this Kubernetes deployment uses the image, this file here. Now, this doesn't have a service. And one of the things you want to know about Cassandra is you can actually set it up as a service. The service allows you to have multiple nodes of Cassandra running underneath it. In this case, it's going to be a single node. You can see replicas 1 here. And it's going to deploy to our Kubernetes. In this case, that's not the one we want to use. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert in a new file. All right. I'm going to close this again. And I'm just going to change this to I could have asked asked the Copilot to actually generate the same thing with the name Kubernetes with AI, but yeah, let's just do it this way. File, save as. Okay. And this one we'll call Cassandra deploy demo. Let's name it YAML. Okay. Save. So it's called Cassandra deploy demo. So this is the one that we just got from Copilot. And what we want to do is actually deploy this out. So once again, Control-Shift-I. So we can say, we can push this into the terminal, and we can just change this name. And basically, that's going to create a deployment on our Kubernetes cluster. So if I go out to the, actually here, kubectl, get pods. Yep. So it's got one running. Let's say I want 3. So basically what I want to do is just go in here and say 3. Nice thing about this, for anybody who's ever tried to do this, is just formatting this YAML file will take you, I don't know, even if you take the example from the Cassandra site, or you go and get it from Stack Overflow or something, and you get a deployment YAML, it'll probably take you a while to actually customize it and make sure that everything works and that the tabs line up and things like that. So this is actually a pretty handy way of doing that. Obviously with Copilot, just generated it for you. Now we should have 3 pods. Yep. So we got 3 pods up and running with Cassandra. As somebody pointed out in a previous demo, this is not a really, really good secure solution. For that, you want to set up a service, and you want to set up some security processes as well. And you might even want to use something like Helm to do this too. So that's the kind of thing you'd want to do to make it fully functional and fully operational. But this is a pretty cool and easy way to deploy something to Kubernetes that you've never seen before, and basically make it work. It works just fine. We can show it in the portal now as well. Let's go to the dashboard, Kubernetes service. And if we look at our services and ingresses, all right. So this is all the services we have. As you can see, there's nothing here that gives you access. And if you recall, when I created this, I didn't allow public access. But we do have Cassandra down here. This is the kind of Cassandra deployment. And you can check the processes and everything like that. I think this is a good time that we should be checking questions. Let's do that. So we've got a few folks who've commented. Yeah. So Hemant was asking, Hemant Kumar Reddy, how you doing? You were asking if there's a demo that we can try. Yes. If you go to, we go to the dashboard. If you go to aka.ms/Kubernetes with AI, I actually have a repo out there with all the steps that I've created here. And you can use that to deploy as well. But you want to use Copilot to do this. So play around with Copilot and make sure that you can do that as well. So that's the kind of thing you do. So that's deploying to Kubernetes. So let's say now you want to work with some code that's actually going to access your Kubernetes cluster. Now, don't forget, we've got a whole bunch of context here in our chat. So if I go back to Visual Studio Code, Control-Shift-I. So I can say, for example, how would I make this more secure? And this is where you have to be able to discern if ChatGPT is actually giving you good answers. You have to know a little bit about security yourself before you actually do this. So for this, you can say use a specific version of a Cassandra image. Okay, that's true. If you use the latest tag, you're not sure what you're going to get. Life is like a box of chocolates. You're going to get, whatever the latest is. It could have some security flaws that haven't been discovered yet, et cetera, et cetera. So you might want to use a lockdown, containerized version of this. And by the way, you can also deploy this directly from Docker Hub. I use the container registry, but you don't have to do it like that. You can actually deploy it from Docker Hub. But the advantage of the container registry, I touched on it earlier, is that you can have a blessed version of Cassandra that has been tested by your organization. It has been determined to be compliant with whatever compliance needs you have. It might even be located in a place that is important for safe harbor regulations, things like that. So that's why it's a good practice to use a container registry and put a Cassandra image on there that is going to be controlled by your organization. All right. And then enable role-based access control. It allows you to control who can access the Kubernetes API, what positions they have. Yeah, that's really important as well, to make sure that you have permissions set up there. And use secrets for sensitive data. So you can actually set up secrets if you want here. Okay. So it actually gives you another deployment YAML file with some of those. And then use network policies. So let's see what it's done here. So we got a Cassandra deployment. We got the 3 replicas. And then inside, we've got Cassandra. We've got a specific version this time, not latest. And the resources, we've got CPU limitations, container port, image pull secrets. So this is good as well. So you can actually set up a secret. You have to do that through a separate process, but this is an example of if you had a secret preset, how you would do that to make sure the container registry is locked down. Not only is it locked down, because by default, the container registry is not public, the Azure Container Registry anyway. It's actually private, but then inside your organization, you might want to have a secret so that only certain folks can actually access the container registry. That way, you're just limiting access and making sure that folks don't have unauthorized access to the code that you're using in critical operations. So that's kind of, and it tells you right down here. In this example, I specified a particular version of Cassandra, added image pull secrets field, which there it goes. It assumes that you've created ACR secret, and it contains the credentials for accessing your container registry. And then it tells you how to create the secret using the kubectl create secret command. And I can say, oh, interesting. Okay. So please provide steps on creating the secret. Okay, I misspelled it, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So you create the service principal, and this is Azure specific thing. And it gives you the steps for that. And then you create the service principal, configure it to access your ACR, and the client ID. Yep. And then create a Kubernetes secret containing the service principal's credentials. Yeah, this will all work fine. And let's see. If I open the chat view, it's going to move it over here, which doesn't help. And then open chat in editor. I can also open the chat in a new window, which is kind of nice. Whoops, where'd it go? Oh, it moved it off screen. Let me move this back over to my screen. There we go. So it actually opens it in a completely new window so I can see things a little better. It's great for displaying when you're doing demos. So this is very useful. So replace the ACR name with the name of your ACR, create a service principal. So this is just setting an environment variable basically. And then this is a CLI command that sets that environment variable to be a registry ID for your ACR. So AZ ACR showed the name of the container registry, and then you query the ID and you output a TSV. And then you create a service principal by using that. So this is basically pretty good bash commands. So if you're not a bash command expert, this is a great way to actually learn how to use that as well. So this would set another environment variable called SP password, and it uses another Azure CLI command, AZAD, Active Directory service principal create for RBAC, and then the name of the principal, the register ID, it does another query and puts it into your password. And then the client, same thing, Azure Active Directory SP show, it actually uses your ACR name and puts that in there as well. So this is actually going to create that those environment variables ready for you to create a secret from them. So kubectl create secret, Docker registry, ACR secret, and then the ACR name would be Kubernetes with AI.azurcr.io, and then the client ID, the password, the namespace. So this is pretty cool. So it actually gives you the steps you need, so you can go deep down the rabbit hole without actually knowing a lot about how these things work. Now, the trick is, of course, as I mentioned before, you need to have experience with this. I mean, you obviously, this would be like, when you go to Stack Overflow and you look for answers for this sort of thing, you're going to want to validate that the answers are the best ones or that they're correct. And they're not always correct with Copilot or ChatGPT or any OpenAI or AI service. It's always good to trust but verify, as they say. All right. So what else can I show you? Let's go back to the original chat window here. And we'll go back to Control-Shift-I. All right. And we'll say, how would I implement? Let's say something else. Please provide Java code to access this instance. Right. It's going to read. All right. It says for this instance, you can use the DataStax Java driver. So DataStax is the corporate custodian of Cassandra, so that makes sense. For Apache Cassandra. Here's a simple example of how to connect using the Cassandra instance and execute a query. Yeah. And then it explains what the access actually does. And it's already assuming that you've set up the credentials that it recommended before. So that's pretty cool. So it tells you what you need to do to actually create the Java. And then it returns a result set. Let's put this in a new file. All right. So there it is. And then I can say, Shift-I, please document this. So it's going to provide you the correct format for comments. It's going to document everything for you and generate what exactly this code does. All right. Okay, so let's go here. Insert a new file. All right. So important necessary classes from the DataStax Java driver, public class, public static void main. So this is setting up the main class. And then it's going to create a session instance. And this is going to use the driver basically to access the Cassandra cluster. I'm not sure. I like the documentation is a little too wordy, but it's better than nothing. So provide the path to the secure connect bundle, provide credentials to connect to the Cassandra instance, and then execute a query on that Cassandra instance, and retrieve the first row from the result of the query. And if there's something there, it's going to tell you the release version. Otherwise, it's just going to give you an error. So that's pretty good. Not bad for generated code. And you could probably use this at least as the base for an access class to work with this as well. All right, so we got about 13 minutes left. That's all I had for the demo today. So just to review, we went through, I started with a blank Kubernetes cluster over here in my portal and an empty container registry. And what we did is we started with the Docker Hub image of Cassandra and asked Copilot how we would actually deploy this to Kubernetes, to specifically Azure Kubernetes Service. It gave us the steps to do it, and it gave us the Docker commands for actually pulling the image down and pushing it to our container registry. And then I asked it how to deploy to AKS from there. It gave us the commands for pushing the container in our container registry to the AKS instance, and it provided us with a deployment YAML file to do it. I had to edit it slightly because it was using the previous demo that I had built, and that's not the cluster that I had pre-made for this demo. And then we asked it how to make it more secure. It gave us some suggestions there. And then how do we actually implement a simple access class for this for working with the database in Java. And of course, I could have used any programming language or anything like that. And I can take some questions now. So Hemant Kumar Reddy, thank you for your question here. I need a free sandbox to practice. Is there any such thing? Yes. So Copilot, you can actually sign up. Let's see. Copilot free trial. So Copilot does offer a free trial as well. You can get started. I can't remember what the terms of the trial are, but there is a free trial for that. And then let's see. I don't know if you have to use a credit card for this. There is a Copilot individual. You can start the free trial, and it's free for verified students, teachers, and maintainers of popular open source projects. So if you have an open source project that you're working with, it'll allow you to do that as well. Let's see what happens here. See, I already have access to Copilot, so I can't show you the example. But if you go to, just search for GitHub Copilot free trial. Individual, it's $10 a month or $100 a year, and you can check the free trial to check it out to see if it's worth it. Spoiler alert, it's worth it. And also, if you're a maintainer of a popular open source project or a student or a teacher, it's free for you as well. There's a verification process, obviously, that you can go through for that. And then, yes, the GitHub repo, there's in the chat, we've got a HTTPS github.com bbens Kubernetes with AI. There's an easier way to get there too, which is aka.ms/Kubernetes with AI. So that's the repo you can go to for that. And I basically go through the steps, most of the steps that I showed you here today. But of course, you could use Copilot to actually prompt that as well. And by the way, you can do all of this with ChatGPT as well. There is a free version and a paid version for ChatGPT. The steps are still the same, but it's just not as context aware, and it's not as easy to put things into your Visual Studio Code, things like that. All right, so we still have about 9 minutes. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. Otherwise, we can wrap it up there. If you do need to find me, bbenz on Twitter, GitHub, most of the socials. Please reach out and connect on LinkedIn. You can find me, Brian Benz, Microsoft, and feel free to ask me questions on any of those platforms as well. One question we have here, Hemanth, you had a question about, is there for Azure too? Do you mean there's a free trial for Azure as well? Or yes, to answer that question, yeah, if you go to portal.azure.com, if you don't have an account already, there is a free trial as well there. And actually, you have pretty good free trial. So not just for the first 30 days, you get everything for the first 30 days, I think. Don't quote me on this. I haven't been there lately. But the free trial itself includes services like app service and a few other things that go on in perpetuity. And by perpetuity, I mean that they may or may not be changing it. But for now, there's a bunch of services that are free beyond the 30-day trial. So that's probably a better way to say it. So do check that out as well. Oh, someone's asking if there's a recording for this. Vishnu, sorry you lost a network connection. Yes, it will be recorded and available on demand there's a link right there. Just popped up on the screen. Aka MS Feb 22, using AI, deploy Kubernetes. Easy to remember. But it should be there. We'll also post this on our Microsoft for Java developers is the name of the YouTube channel. Microsoft for Java developers. We'll make sure and post it there as well. All right. Well, I think we can wrap up unless there's any other questions. Feel free, like I say, to reach out to me on Twitter, GitHub, LinkedIn, bbenz on Twitter and GitHub, and Brian Benz, Microsoft at LinkedIn. And there's a survey, so aka.ms/reactor/survey, event code 21856. Your feedback is much appreciated. Thanks to everybody for joining. Talk to you soon.